You are now tuned in to the Big Ten Coaches Hot Seat Report for Week 4 of the Big Ten football season, brought to you by Talking10.com. And after our first ever report following Week 3 of this season, we've seen some changes in our report. Some coaches helped their cases, and others moved closer to being fired, despite an overall quality weekend for the Big Ten. So let's get right into this week's Hot Seat Report. Last week, we had Kirk Ferentz of Iowa and Randy Edsall of Maryland sitting with one cheek on the hot seat. Did either of them take themselves completely off after Saturday's results? Well, the good news for both is that their teams went into ACC territory and got W's. Iowa overcame a slow start and made a huge comeback against Pitt under quarterback CJ Beathard, who went 7 of 8 for 98 yards in relief of Jake Ruddock, who was just 5 of 10. The Hawkeyes needed that win, and so did Ferentz. For now, he takes himself off the list and may stay that way until later this season, given the rest of its schedule. However, another loss before November, and Ferentz could be putting himself with one cheek back on the hot seat. And on the other hand, Randy Edsall's Terps were ready to go, and his team turned in an all-around performance in its 34-20 win over Syracuse. He got 2 big passing touchdowns from CJ Brown, which was a question mark heading into this game. William Likely had an 80-yard INT return for a touchdown, and after a 14-13 scoreline early in the second quarter, the Terps busted loose for 20 unanswered points to put this one away. Sure, Syracuse may not be amazing, but it proved the Terps have the ability to compete with the middle of the Big Ten at worst, and maybe pull an upset or two. As a result, Edsall takes himself completely off the hot seat as well. Speaking of moving off the hot seat, Kevin Wilson went from warming up his place on the hot seat following an embarrassing loss to Bowling Green to taking himself off the hot seat for now. Going on the road, having Indiana beat a number 18 ranked Missouri team, and doing it given what happened the week before, makes this an easy call. The improvement on the defensive side of the ball was massive from week 3 to week 4. And if the Hoosiers can continue to grow on defense, look for Wilson to lead this team to a bowl game and thus save his job. There's still a long way to go, and not regressing during Big Ten play will still be huge for Wilson's chances. However, the other 2 members of the warming up category last week, Darrell Hazell of Purdue and Northwestern's Pat Fitzgerald, did nothing to make me think they would not end up gone by the end of the season in week 4. Sure, both teams won, but they were still glaring weaknesses shown against borderline okay FCS opposition. Northwestern won 24-7 over Western Illinois, but the Wildcats were outgained by the Leathernecks and were just 3 of 15 on third downs. Had it not been for 4 Western Illinois turnovers, Northwestern was very likely a loser at home in this game. Fitz's team needs to show they can put together a complete game, and the Week 4 win was anything but that. Purdue, well, they did put up 25 unanswered points to start against the Salukis, but there are plenty of issues still happening in West Lafayette. One win against an FCS opponent doesn't mean Purdue is still capable of winning a Big Ten football game, and until that happens, Hazell isn't coming off the list. Perhaps the biggest movement of the weekend happened in the 2 categories no one wants to live in our hot seat report. Sitting directly on the hot seat and being good as fired, specifically. And while the hot seat doesn't have anyone directly on it in week 4, it also means we've got a new resident of the good as fired category. And folks, welcome Brady Hoke of Michigan to that domain. Sorry, but losing at home to Utah, combined with a blanking by Notre Dame just 2 weeks ago, it's all the proof I need that Hoke isn't moving this team in the right direction. Michigan is a team that should have the talent to compete with and beat anyone. At this point though, the Wolverines have failed to show they can compete with anyone that isn't a minnow in the college football world. And until the Wolverines can actually beat someone that matters, Hoke is as good as gone in my opinion. In fact, he may only be able to save his job with a win over Ohio State at the end of the season, and even that may not be enough given the Wolverines' schedule before that. Tim Beckman was our first resident of the good as gone category, and he stays there after a struggle against an improving Texas State team. After all, we're talking about an Illini squad that spotted the Bobcats a 21-6 lead before waking up and realizing they should be crushing any team from the Sun Belt. It took 3 second-half touchdowns on offense and a 45-yard INT return from Viangelo Bentley to pull off the comeback win. While it's good to see fight in the Illini, we have yet to see them put together a dominating performance against anyone in the non-conference season. That defense is going to continue to struggle and be the ultimate reason Beckman doesn't stay beyond 2014, in my opinion. And folks, that does it for this week's Talking10.com Big Ten Coaches Hot Seat Report. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Talking_10, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel below. And with that, it's Andy Coppins and Talking10.com signing off until next week's Big Ten Coaches Hot Seat Report.